There were some nasty thunderstorms on the first night of our backpacking trip. We camped at a lower elevation with tree cover, but it was still a little freaky. As a result, we had a relaxed morning to make sure the storms had passed before continuing on to higher elevations. I used my Garmin InReach to download detailed weather forecasts to make sure it was safe to carry on with our planned route. The weather ended up clearing at about 8 a.m., and it turned out to be a beautiful day. On the second day, we hiked almost 7 miles and ascended 1,500 feet. We enjoyed beautiful scenery on the Loeb Trail. The Loeb Trail is a 30-mile point-to-point trail in western North Carolina. I considered hiking the entire trail with Choya, but instead opted to create a loop with part of the Loeb Trail and some other trails in the area so we wouldn't have to worry about getting a shuttle. We saw the most people on the second day of our trip due to the popularity of the Loeb Trail and accessibility of Black Balsam Knob, since the summit is only 0.7 miles from the Blue Ridge Parkway. Although we could see Black Balsam Knob from our campsite, we still had to hike several miles to reach it, which involved descending a few hundred feet before ascending that again. At 6,214 feet, Black Balsam Knob was the highest point on our backpacking trip. The exposed hike to the summit reminded me of some of the trails we've hiked in New Hampshire. I really enjoyed it. Dogs are required to be leashed on the Loeb Trail, so I made sure to put Choya on a leash for this portion of our hike. The views from Black Balsam Knob were incredible, but we didn't stay at the summit too long because it was really crowded and Choya started to get overwhelmed. It was also pretty windy. Next mountain we summited was Tennant Mountain, which is 6,040 feet. The clouds were really moody at the summit, and it was neat to watch the landscape change as the clouds passed through. After Tennant Mountain, the crowds cleared significantly as there were fewer day hikers, but we started to encounter more backpackers as we approached the Shining Creek Trail. We ended up camping at Shining Creek Gap, which allowed me to access water from Shining Creek. This was a very crowded area with a lot of backpackers, which is not my preferred backcountry experience. Because we set up camp early, I was able to dry my sleeping bag and tent from the rain the previous night while there was still some sunshine. After that, I cooked dinner, read about 100 pages in my book, and went to bed early. The next morning was a little chilly. I read in my tent before making breakfast. Even after having a hot breakfast and moving around, I was still cold, so I decided to pack up camp and start hiking in order to warm up. Before descending down the Old Butt Knob Trail, we summited Shining Rock. Shining Rock is a summit covered with enormous boulders of white quartz that catch sunlight. It was absolutely stunning, and we had the place to ourselves. I did have to help Choya over some of the boulders. Shining Rock is the namesake for the Shining Rock Wilderness, which is the largest wilderness in North Carolina. After summiting Shining Rock, we had a very short but very steep hike down to the car. We hiked 5 miles, during which we descended 4,500 feet. In total, we hiked 22 miles over 3 days, making this Choya's longest backpacking trip.